Assalamu alaikum. I'm Malik Hodge, Angel Warrior of the Midwest, and a messenger of the covenant. Representing the messenger of the covenant, the breaker of the seven seals, self-taught one. Master Suleiman, who has given us the Injil, the Gospel of Revelations with the Injil key that gives us the understanding of the unsealed scriptures. This is Up Late Update with Malik Hodge. On this September the 1st, Friday, September the 1st. This is where we take current events and get the understanding of them from the angel perspective. And we take each topic and bring the understanding to you from what's taking place in today's world through the lens of the unsealed Bible or the unsealed scriptures. Let us begin. Pay attention. Our first topic. Right. Okay. Biden says Trump and his allies threatens the American democracy. Philadelphia. President Biden warned that former President Donald Trump and his allies are threatening to undermine the nation's democracy, using a prime-time address to lay out his concerns for the country's future when millions of Americans have questioned the legitimacy of the 2020 presidential election. Standing in front of Philadelphia Independence Hall, Mr. Biden directly condemned what he called mega Republicans, citing the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol by Trump supporters, saying, "As I stand here tonight, equality and democracy is under assault." The speech Thursday night came just before the traditional Labor Day start of the midterm election campaign season and was delivered from a key battleground state. Too much of what happening in the country today is not normal, he said. Donald Trump and the mega Republicans represent an extremist that threatens the very foundation of our republic. Mr. Biden sought to draw a distinction between Republicans allied with Mr. Trump and others in the party. He called the people from all nations to unite behind the single person of defending our democracy regardless of your ideology. Trump spokesman Taylor Budwich said on Twitter after campaigning on a return to normalcy, Biden showed tonight all that meant is division and plight that has left every American worse off than they were before. During Mr. Biden's speech, the voice of demonstrators shouting into bullhorns could be heard from nearby streets in opposition to his remarks. The Republicans' National Committee said in a statement that Mr. Biden was the divider in chief and epitomized the current state of the Democratic Party, one of divisiveness. Disgust and hostility towards half the country. Democrats hold narrow majorities in both the House and the Senate, and Mr. Biden is seeking to turn the election into a choice for voters between the party and that of Republicans who have criticized his leadership and have said Democrats are trying to distract from the more central issues of national and economic unrest. The speech is one of these visits Mr. Biden is making it to Philadelphia, a top battleground state with closely watched races for governor and the Senate in the course of a week. Mr. Trump is scheduled to hold a rally in the state for GOP candidates Saturday. Mr. Biden and White House officials have been more directed in recent weeks in criticizing what they have called ultra mega Republicans, referring to Mr. Trump Make America Great Again campaign slogan, and he's spreading false claims about widespread fraud in the 2020 election. During a Maryland fundraiser last week, Mr. Biden described Mr. Trump and his allies' approach to governing as like semi-fascism and said they threaten American democracy. A Quinnipiac University poll released this week found identical shares of Republican and Democrats 69 69% of peace said they believe the nation's democracy is in danger of challenge, though likely for very different reasons. So you hear that the democracy, 69% said the democracy is in direct challenge, but for different reasons. So they're getting ready for the midterms. The election campaign is started. They're in a key battleground state, and this is as you can see, Biden is calling out Trump and his allies, and then Trump and his allies is speaking in regard of Joe Biden and his poor leadership, and the Democrats and the Republicans are both it's gonna be some, it's gonna be something to watch, because it's so much decision and so many things going on, like the social unrest, country falling apart, what is it called, inflations, and so many things that they're dealing with right now that is being brought to the light. And they're saying that they called in the story, they called Biden, what they called him, they called him the disruptive chief, the disruptive chief in a minute, chief, and instead of the chief, the president chief, and they call him the disruptive chief minister. So that's that topic. We're gonna move on. We catch back with it when our next topic is yes. Now, this is how it begins. It says, all of a sudden, it's undrinkable. Why an entire U.S. city has no clean water. 30-year-old Kendrick Hart remembers the warnings his father gave about Jackson, the capital of Mississippi, where they both still live. They need to do something about this water before it gets bad. The overwhelming majority of people, more than 150,000 in the predominantly black city, have now lost access to safe running water. Most had already been without drinking water for more than a month, but flooding last weekend, caused by weeks of rain, further interrupted operations at the city Belaguru main water plant. Currently, large numbers have nothing come large numbers have nothing come out of their taps, and for those that do, it must be boiled before being consumed. The situation has raised questions about the impact of underinvesting since white families abandoned the city in masses. So let's read that. Brothers and sisters, y'all better pay attention. It says, and it's a predominantly black city. And they said they have underinvested since white families abandoned the city in masses. It also suggested how extreme flooding exaggerated by the climate crisis will take a toll on infrastructure. For the longest time, I have been experiencing dirty water, and now we got to the point where we ain't got no water, said Hart, who was visiting a church on Wednesday where bottled water was being handed out. It is like, wow. And I feel like it could have been something done a long time ago to prevent this. He said he knew of people with no running water who were visiting friends and families members in adjoining majority white cities and suburbs to take showers. So the white cities and white suburbs, they got water. So y'all got to pay attention. You got to pay attention. The crisis is in a acute stage with temperatures set to top 90 degrees on Thursday and Friday. School have been shut. Schools have shuttered their buildings and gone virtual. The Mississippi Emergency Management Agency announced water distribution plans on Thursday. The city has created water distribution plans, and some communities organizations are doing what they can to fill the gap. We can't take a bath, we can't drink water, and we can't wash dishes. None of that, said Carl Moore said, who was sitting in a car at a church with friends. Schuyler Bell with cases of bottled water in the back seat. Bell said, it's been about a month now. First, our water is coming out brown. Yep, it's coming out brown, and all of a sudden, it's undrinkable. And then, it's hot. Our water bill is high, and we can't even drink the water. She added, and it's really affecting everybody. Authorities declared an emergency on Monday when limited staff at the main water treatment facility struggled to treat water arriving in far higher volume owing to the flooding and dealt with a pump failure. But it is capstone to years of problems, financial and staff constraint and equipment malfunctions have long affected the city's water treatment facility operations. The larger of the two treatment plants have been plagued with incessant disruption, leading to repeated boil water notices indicating that the water is not fit to drink without boiling it first. Since the 29th of July, the entire city has been under a boil water notice. So I'm not even going to go more farther into that. That city is 89% black. And the first thing they said, since the white people moved out, they have not been doing anything. They've been bagging, they evidently, and they've been paying, their bills is high, they paying bills, and they don't have water. So you don't have water, but you're still paying for the bill. How does that go? Well, if it's like here, light and gas, lights and water, however, what stands out in it is this is a black city. And they said they got to go to the white cities to get water, to have running water to take baths. And this is Jackson, Mississippi. Now, I don't know if y'all paying attention, but you should be. If they don't have running water in Jackson, Mississippi, then they try to then they had lead and flint. This stuff is not just hypothetically or just something that just popped up and happened that all of a sudden. They've been knowing for years that this plant's water is pumped. This whole plant has been dysfunctional. But they don't care because it's a black city. It's a black city, so they don't care. Since the whites was moved out, they didn't care too. They didn't care about what the conditions of fixing nothing or keeping it, water. The water plants operating functionally and kept up. So it's a whole city in America. Make note that it's 89% black and they're out of water. They'll have no running water. How big is that? Where's the president? He ran down to Kentucky when they got flooded. So now this 89% Jackson, Mississippi, is Biden going down there to see what's taking place? Are they going down there to help out government assistance or anything? Think on it. Let's go to our next topic. Think on it. All right. All right. Where is that? Checking our time too as well. So, okay. Oh, yes. So I'm gonna move into this. I'm gonna pass this one up and I want to speak on that. The fire. The give me a second. The fire. Here, I'm writing my bad. So, as heat wave grips the West, millions in California are urged to set thermostats to 78 degrees to conserve electricity today. So, it's known that Cali always have electric outings, but energy has been a problem and is becoming a problem around the globe. However, this is due to heat wave. An intense heat wave will blanket much of the West this week, prompting officials in California to urge residents to slash their energy consumption for the second day in a row to avoid straining the electric grid. The California Independent System Operator, which it's taking place here. Hold on. Excuse me. Which manages 80% of the state's grid, extended what is known as the Flex Alert, urging residents to curtail electricity use between the hours of 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. through at least Thursday. The operator also suggested residents pre-cool their homes at 72 degrees Fahrenheit before 4 p.m. and then set their thermostat to 75 degrees or higher during conservation hours. Residents should also avoid charging electric vehicles or using large appliances, it said. More flex alerts are likely to be issued through the holiday weekend as excessive heat is forecast to blanket most of California, the operator warned in the news release Wednesday. Okay. All right. That's part of what we're going to speak of. That's the grid. Now, let's get into what's really taking place in California. California fires have right here. Let's do this. Oh, I don't want to turn from this. Let me see about time. Okay, we get it. There we are. Explosive new wildfires amid scorching heat in most of California. Thursday, September the 1st. Most of California is facing a series of explosive new wildfires and is under the daily threat of looming blackouts. Around 40 million Americans across the West are suffering through unbearable heat. NBC News Miguel Muger reports on the growing concerns in the region. So, also, is the wildfires have resurfaced and it has exploded. They all right. Let me see. Give us a little bulb. Due to time, we're going to keep it moving. However, wildfires in California and the grid, the energy grid, they're trying to keep. They're trying to keep the grid from overloading and having those blackouts that they have. So they're trying to get people to utilize their power at certain times of the day, and then pretty much trying to pass throughout the day when the grid gets the energy is very excessively used, and then the heat is a factor as well in these parts of the day when they're trying to keep the grid from overloading. So they're trying to at least get to the night when the temperatures are lower and the sun is down before you use your energy. So they're trying to preserve the grid and they're back up under intense severe fires again. Fires are burning all through parts of California once again. However, due to time, we're gonna bring it. I might speak on it a little bit more. However, let's move on to our next topic, and that is I have to get that one. What is? Oh, okay. Here we are. Yeah, that's a no. Mhm. Oh, let me just get to it. Yeah, make it easier. Israel strikes. Oh yeah, all right. Israel. Syria's government says Israel is playing with fire. Syria foreign minister says false Israel is playing with fire following false Israel strikes near Damascus and on Aleppo's international airport in previous the previous evening. The strikes resulted in material damage only, according to state news agencies SANA, which said Syria air defense shot down a number of Israel's missiles around the capital. There was an immediate comment from false Israel officials. There was no immediate comment from false Israel's officials. False Israel never does comment. They don't say anything. They just take strikes out. This is what they do. They terrorize the region and call everybody else terrorists. There was no, in comments, reports by SANA on Thursday, Syria's top diplomat Faisal al-Maqdad said false Israel was threatening regional security. False Israel is playing with fire and is putting the regional military and security situations at risk of an explosion. The agency reported him as saying, Syria will not remain silent regarding the repeated Israeli attacks, and the Israelis will pay the price sooner or later. False Israel has staged numerous strikes in Syria in recent years, mainly targeting alleged weapons convoys or stores belonging to allied fighters from Iran. In June, Syria blamed false Israel for aerial attacks on its main international airport in Damascus that put the site out of commission for several weeks. Israeli defense officials say the civilian airport has been used regularly by Iran to transport weapons and military and militias. So this here is false Israel attacked airstruck yesterday, last night. On the Apple airport, and they was shot at Damascus at the capital. However, the defense system knocked down the missiles that were shot at Damascus, but the Aleppo airport was hit by airstrikes and caused some property damage. And Syria shared that sooner or later Israel is going to have to pay for what they're doing. They're not going to keep allowing false Israel to keep assaulting them, carrying out these airstrikes, because false Israel is continuing to carry out airstrike on Syria. So let us go to our next report. And then we're going to pull it all together on a wrap up. Iran. Okay. Iran says it sends constructive response on nuclear deal. U.S. disagrees. Dubai. September 2nd. Iran has September the 2nd. Iran has response to the U.S. proposal aimed at reviving Tehran's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers. Iran Foreign Ministry said, prompting a less positive impression from the United States. The text that was sent by Iran has constructive approach aimed at finalizing the negotiation. Foreign Minister spokesman Nasser Kanani was quoted as saying by state broadcaster IRIB on Friday. We can confirm that we have received Iran's response through a EU. A spokesperson said, we are studying it and will respond through the EU, but unfortunately it is not constructive. White House National Security Council spokesman Adrian Watson said some gaps have closed in the recent weeks, but others remain. The IRIB report said Iran's response was sent to EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell, who has been coordinating the negotiation. It gave no further details. After 16 months of indirect talks between Tehran and Washington, Borrell said on August the 8th the EU had laid down the final offer to overcome an impasse for the revival of the agreement. Iran needs strong guarantees from Washington for the revival of a 2015 nuclear deal, its foreign minister said on Wednesday, adding that the UN atomic watchdog should drop its politically motivated probes on Tehran's nuclear work. Under the 2015 pact, Iran had curbed its nuclear program in return for relief from U.S., EU, and UN sanctions. Then U.S. President Donald Trump reneged on the deal in 2018, arguing that it was too generous to Tehran. He reimposed U.S. sanctions on Iran, leading Tehran to resume previously banned nuclear activities and reviving U.S., European, and Israel false Israel fears that Iran may seek an atomic bomb. Iran denies any such ambition. So, Iran is still looking for still wanting more guarantees in this bill, in this agreement. They want guarantees in this agreement, and they want the atomic watchdog to drop all their investigation, which America said is not going to do. They're standing behind the atomic, what do they call the IAEA? So they're standing behind them 100%. They said they're not going to drop anything. They want Iran needs to answer the questions, and Iran said they're gonna need more agreements before they're gonna sign anything. So they have passed in. They have given Joseph Borrell their response from America's since America responded back earlier this week. Tehran is responding back, and they said it's not. It's still a couple of things that they have to iron out before they can come to an agreement, and it's clear to say that Washington is not going to give them any type of agreement. They're not going to give them a treaty. They're not going to spend the time to even try to send it through the Senate or the House or the Senate. They're not going to do that. They're not going to spend the time that is needed to give them a guarantee, and they're not even trying to give them a guarantee. So it's not that they can't give them a guarantee. They're not trying to give them a guarantee. Somebody's just supposed to take Americans' word as if they tell the truth, or that they're saints, and knowing they ain't kept up. Go ask the Native Americans how good America has kept his word. You ask a lot. Go all around the world and ask, have America kept its word? You're gonna come back and understand that the word, only word they didn't keep is a lie, because they never kept their word on nothing. And devils can't keep their word. I mean, They just can't. They just wordless, just liars, and all they do is they're out to deceive, and it's an easy process to, if you want to give them a better um however, America's not going to do it. We're going to just leave it like that. America's not going to give them um no guarantees. They're not going to put it in writing that they're guaranteeing anything. They're going to just say we're going to release the sanctions, if that, and they're not going to drop the IAEA's investigation as well. So we know that, well, that's going to be the spark. That's going to be the spark. False Israel said it. Everybody's in the Middle East already is at unrest, and any day is going to blow. False Israel, Hezbollah, Hamas. Everyone's already said they're preparing for war. They're preparing for war, and they see the regardless of what happens with the JCPOA, that the region is going to go to war. So the war, the abomination of desolation. Every night we this is the event that we're waiting to see. This is the event that's coming up. This war in the Middle East, the war between Michael and his angels, and which is Rastafari Muhammad, Iran and Syria, and the dragon and his angels. The House of Side, American Britain, Gog and Magog. Britain and America, Gog and Magog. And false Israel, the synagogue of Satan. And Iran and Syria is going to remove Saudi Arabia from the Middle East, kicking out or removing America and Britain from the Middle East, and sieging false Israel and then destroying it, which will be the abomination of desolation when all the world sees exactly who's the true seed of Abraham. And it's going to be a shock, because they're going to think, they're still thinking that when false Israel is under siege, that they're expecting Jesus or someone to come back and save false Israel just in a nick of time and destroy all their enemies. But when they see that is not the truth, and that Iran and Syria has defeated them and destroyed them and has taken hold over the whole Middle East, that is the shock of the hour. It's going to shock them, which is going to cause their minds to blow, hearts to blow, blood pressure blowing, stroking out, because they're going to see without a shadow of a doubt that the black man and woman is the true seed of Abraham, and they're going to understand that they're the people, they're the ones that afflicted God's chosen people. So they're going to know for sure who they are. So, let me check our time. So I'm going to stay on time. This right here. Right on schedule. So, they're going to, this war in the Middle East immediately after, he's going to start the war of Armageddon, because America is going to go directly to war with Russia after this, bringing in that Russia had to assist in more than one way of helping Iran take out Britain and America, Saudi and Israel. They're gonna America is going to insist on getting immediately at Russia, because they're going to blame Russia for assisting Iran. So then we have, once again, a whole city, 89% black city, with no running water. In America, a whole city with no running water. We have Joe Biden in Philadelphia sharing that America is on the brink of losing their democracy. You have a city, a black city, with no water. Then we have wildfires flaring back up in the West Coast. And temperatures rising out there as well. You have a hurricane that is brewing, the first hurricane that's been brewing, that is in the Atlantic. The first one that looks that they named is Dan. It looks like it's going to hit, or it's going to be actually the first hurricane this season. And Syria is upset with false Israel from these airstrikes. They tried to hit they tried to bomb the capital. And see, when false Israel do these things, they don't care about if those bombs would have hit the capital, how many innocent people, or how many people was in the air. People, civilians. So you're not going for military. That wasn't a military spot. They're trying to hit anywhere into occupied areas of people, men, women, children, but they don't care. It doesn't bother them. However, Iran said that they didn't have enough, and sooner or later, false Israel is going to get what it has coming. So we do that, see that as well, and Iran, this JCPOA, the nuclear agreement, they've sent their side. They have sent another text of their proposal, since America sent theirs earlier this week. Iran has sent theirs to Boris. What's his name? Send it to the what's his name, boy? Joe Barrows. to look at it. So America is saying they're not in, they still, it's still some things that need to be worked out. There's still a couple of things that either side is not bending from, and one of those things is definitely it's going to be the straw to break the back, is giving them a guarantee, because America is not going to be able to do that. And why would you sign something that you can't guarantee? No guarantees can be given to you. So it's basically what we've been sharing, but we got to keep you informed for what's taking place and what's going on day to day. And today, Iran sent a response via text message back to America, to Joe Barrows, of who's the one that's negotiating the deal. So that's what's taking place in the Middle East. That's what's taking place with the JCPOA. The country is, what they're saying is, the country is divided, and they said that the country has not been this divided or this stressed or this much tension since the Civil War. So they give you an understanding or example, or use the Civil War, what the country was going through at that time, and they use that to explain how bad the situation really is inside of America, and with this Democratic Party, Republican Party, or the Confederates, and the well, it slipped my mind. Confederate and well, that's what's taking place. Let me check on that. And due to time, we're gonna keep it right on time this evening. Make sure we're what's that saying? Oh yes, we're out of time. And I'll see you tomorrow at the same time at 11 o'clock Central, 12 o'clock Eastern, and 9 o'clock Pacific. And this is up late update with Malik Hodge, and I greet you as I came in the greeting words of Assalamu alaikum.